ahead and get started. Thank you, first of all, thank you all for being here tonight. I do think we've got a few more that'll probably be coming, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I sent an email out about proposed schedule. We had to flip-flop police and public works for tonight. So what I'd like to propose to you, we have a bus out front. Like to do selection of chair and vice chair, and then take you for a little road trip tour of the service center, and then come back here after we do that, if everybody's okay with that. So if we could get started so that we can officially have you guys all set up and ready to go, selection of a chair, vice chair. At this point, would certainly accept nominations for the position of chair. Could be any one of you. You do have to be present to vote. You don't have to be present, I guess, officially to be nominated, but and ideally it would be somebody who is on the committee. It should be somebody who's on the committee. So if anybody has any
I'd like to nominate Mr. Harvey if you'd accept it.
I will accept. Thank you very much.
Are there,
Second is nomination.
thank you. Are there any other nominations? Not everybody was. All right, well, since we have no other nominations, all those in favor of, I guess, let's officially close the nominations first, as long as everybody's okay with that. And then if everybody would give a motion, let's do a nomination in a second. So I guess officially, if we could have a vote on the nomination of Mr. Harvey being the chair. All right. Give enough people to step backwards. That congratulations. Thank you.
I was thinking of that cartoon too.
Well, on that note, Mr. Chairman, would you like to take over from here and select a vice chair?
I would. So thank you all very much for your support. And what we are going to do at this time is to nominate a person to be vice chair. And so I guess my question is, we should have an attorney. Can I do a nomination?
Sure, yeah, you can definitely do that.
I would like to nominate Ms. Erica Browning to be vice chair.
I would second that nomination.
She won
It's fine with me.
So, it's been motioned by myself and seconded by
Mr. Goff.
Mr. Goff. And do we have any other nominations for vice chair? If not, I will call for a vote. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All right, so we have Ms. Browning. Thank you so much. Congratulations. All right.
Congratulations, Steve.
So
Thank you both.
that brings us to item B, tour of service center.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you would recess this so that we can take a tour of the service center, and then we'll come back and pick up the rest of the items when we get back.
Okay, so I will accept the motion to recess for this time so that we can take our journey to the service center, and we will pick up with the agenda when we return.
Question? Is the public, if they want to go with us, allowed to join us?
Absolutely.
Public, did you hear that?
You need a second, Mike. You need a second.
All right, moved by Eric, seconded by
Ms. Malone.
Ms. Malone. I'm having tough on that today. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, all in favor, aye, raise your hand. None. Let's go.
So we have a bus out front. Feel free to grab water, snack, whatever you would like. Everybody's welcome to come along with us, and I don't think we'll be too terribly long. We'll go through the tour. Public Works Director will meet us over there, take us for a tour, and then we'll come back.
having completed our tour of the Public Works Center. Next item on the agenda is discussion of possible location.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just for official, for if somebody's watching the video later, it's 7:52. We're reconvening, so we talked a little bit about this kind of in the bus coming back, but you know, there's a lot of benefit to centralizing operations as much as we can. And we kind of showed you there as we were walking around the service center that we think we have enough land, repurpose that facility right there. Even the new fuel station that we saw there, even the yard, laying that out a little differently and those types of things. But there's still plenty of land there. So our recommendation to you is that we keep the service center at that location.
So, any questions for the city manager about the information he just shared? All right.
You said the amount was 12 million, what they were thinking?
Yeah, so, and again, this
Including
is
what we already have, too. Or,
ballpark, what I would say is we're thinking it's going to be in the 10 to 12 million total cost construction. Probably jumping ahead a little there, if you don't mind, I'll just.
I did, okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good, you're good. We wanna open the discussion on the next one there, D.
Okay. All right, so it turns our attention over to item D, discussion of possible facility. Mr. Finch?
Thank you, sir. So we talked a little bit about this as we were doing the tour with Public Works Director Bryant, but what we have tentatively been looking at is utilizing the steel frame structure that is there for the garage bays, expanding that a little bit, and then what we would have to do, and you saw it, we'd have to build a new administration wing. A lot of the service center now, but that is, the main bays are generally pretty high for the big trucks and all the big equipment and everything else. I think there is a diagram, I think there's a floor plan from the facility needs assessment that's in your binder. But coming forward and then adding that administration wing on the front so that the public can use it and those sorts of things. But Chairman, I turn it back to you. I'm just kind of curious if anybody would like to share their thoughts on the facility.
All right,
Can
Ms. Brown?
I was just curious, so all of those vehicles that are now going to auction and the other vehicles that are not going to auction, you want most of that inside. I mean, obviously not the auction vehicles, but you're thinking about making that inside. So can that space be utilized for the new building?
It can. So the building could potentially go that way. We still have to figure out what makes sense in terms of laying it out. It could go out that way. There'll probably always be some number of vehicles, but nothing to that extent that you're seeing out there right now that'll be on the outside. We also have vehicles sometimes that are impounded by the police department. Sometimes those will end up out there for security purposes. We also have another location where those end up sometimes. Yes, there is definitely an opportunity to do that. The other thing that we saw out there was that wash station, that wash bay. A lot of times these newer buildings, you have the main, what I would call the core of the building, which is the high roof where all the vehicles can come and go kind of one direction through. And then you have lean-tos off of it, that one might be a mechanic's bay, one might be a wash station, those types of things. And so we just have to look to see how that lays out, but we can definitely use some of that space back there.
Any other member have questions, need clarification about the tour?
Mr. Finch, I think one of the things I noticed down there is that the facility needs some enhanced break room area and possibly meeting training room space. I don't know what the state requirements are for all the various roles that are down there, but any certification classes or anything. I was thinking at the senior center, there's that back area that people use for events, but then there's also like a break room area, kind of like that format. Is there room at the center to do something like that, under the new, some sort of addition or whatever?
Right. So we'll want to, yes, is the short answer to that. I want to draw your attention. We had a facility needs assessment done. It's in your book here, and it's also available on the city website. I think it's 25, 26.
24, 25,
Yep.
26.
Now, the only thing I would share with you about this facility needs assessment was done by a company called Hewlett Zollers. They're the ones that did the city facility needs assessment in 2018, and then they just completed this update for us. Specifically with regard to the service center, they did an update to this based on what they believe the future need and growth would be, and I think that there's a lot of data that we can use from that to determine. But one of the things that they actually show is a second level option, and that can get pretty costly out there, and we really don't think we need the second level option. We would like to keep it a one level, come out further. I think we can expand our dollar, get a little bigger bang for our buck, and do exactly what you're talking about, putting in the training spaces and the training rooms and those types of things, and keeping it all on one level.
All right.
Would it be HADOT block or would you do another metal?
I'm sorry.
What material construction material would you?
Just a steel. It'd be a steel frame structure essentially, and then you wrap the steel, and then you just do the finish out. So the building itself becomes a steel frame structure. That's what most of them really are, and then it's just a matter of finishing out. So you'd finish. Obviously, you'd have a different finish for the offices, the administration, the training than you would for the main bay where just the vehicles are going to be. But the core of the whole entire building would just be a steel frame structure, be designed to last for another 40 years. So really extend the life cycle of it.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Okay, that brings us down to E, discussion of possible costs. Mr. Finch.
Yes, sir. So in the facility needs assessment, Zollers, I apologize. I just grabbed the correct page number here for you so you can see. Did you have it there?
It's page 1 of that section. I mean, that's the first page of the.
It has the summary.
Facility needs assessment. Yeah.
I'm used to
Page
there's
4, municipal service center office. And a bunch of different things that are.
yeah, that's got the gross. There's actually there's an executive summary which I'm not seeing. Of course, I'm trying to look for it. It actually has a breakdown of the costs. I know that we did put that, I believe, on the. So let me just flip through here. Little light reading material.
At 16?
16 have the numbers.
Let's just-
There you go. You got it. Page 16. Yep.
Okay.
So page 16, you have the separations there, right? You've got the service center office estimated amounts as well as the garage estimated amounts for a total of about $9 million. And again, that was done last year. Costs go up every single year. That's why we're saying we think that the cost is roughly in the 10 million to 12 million. Shouldn't be any more than 12 million. The good news is we have that 2 million to go towards it, so we'd be talking about $10 million needed, and hopefully we can get it a little bit less than that. because again, we also are looking to try to keep that a one-story building instead of a two-story building. I don't really think there's a need to go for a two-story on that. I think what they were trying to do is keep using the exact same footprint, but we have the land, so instead of using the same exact footprint, we can just come out further whichever way instead of going up a second story there. So.
Any questions, Mr. Zilka?
If we're paying interest on the prior bond, can we use that money for items like maybe replacing the fuel pumps or concrete repairs in the parking lot or things like that that are needed that are outside of the main core area? And that, I don't know if that would whittle down any of the expenses for the proposed thing that would.
Excellent question. And we can, yes, we could do that. So for instance, we could go ahead and do a new fuel station. The only reason why we haven't is we need to do the layout of the building first to make sure we don't put the fuel station where the building's gonna be. So once we get that layout exactly nailed down, everybody's in agreement on that, then if the fuel station stays there and it's not in the way, we can absolutely go ahead and do that.
There could be some other pre-development soft
Yes.
costs that they might be spent on.
Right.
You know, to,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
like all the stuff you gotta do anyway.
Yeah, they'll have to have different assessments.
You mentioned the water. Is this core related creek over there, or is it
The
Corps of Engineers Creek, or is it?
we should be able to stay out of that. That is, that's actually 10 Mile Creek that goes all down through there. We should be able to stay out of the creek though. I think we'll be okay. Obviously, when we do the whole environmental, we've got to refer it and all that stuff, but yeah.
But that,
Is it south? I may have it mixed up. There's another one. I can't remember the
Barnet
name.
Branch, I think.
Which one?
Barnet Branch.
Okay. Okay. I can't keep track of where it winds. 10 Mile Creek winds, it's south of Daniel Dale, but then it winds to the north, like at the Lad, I think, and then it,
Right.
I lose it after that. I don't know where it
I
goes.
just know
from there,
it's
so.
south of Champions Cove, so it wouldn't be.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay. Agenda item F, discussion of the financial picture of the city. Mr. Finch.
Thank you, sir. So the good news is, as we were talking about, we have completed the financial audits. So we were all up to date, and I have something to pass that really goes out to you with both F and G both. We just received these today. This is the, so they're not in your packets, but this is the report that we get from our company that we work with, our partners in terms of the bonding and our debt, Hilltop Securities. And this is a report on basically the debt of the city, the debt report, as well as the ability of the city to take on new debt. The easiest way that I would have to tell you to look at this is, and you're welcome to obviously go through this in detail. And unfortunately, I don't know why there's not page numbers, but if you go to the back of the third piece of paper, and the top of it says City of Duncanville 2025 General Obligation Debt Report. And it's on the backside. So that, basically those numbers are as of the end of January, associated with the audit. It tells you the market evaluation established, but probably one of the more important aspects that you want to zero in is that very last line, the ratio of the net general obligation tax debt to taxable value, and that is 0.45%. That is what the city's debt currently is relative to that ratio to taxable value. So the state of Texas does not have a percentage that they say you have to stay in. However, the bonding entities like Moody's and Standard & Poor's, they recommend that you stay somewhere no greater than 6%. They like to see that a municipality has not borrowed more than 4 to 6%. So obviously we are way less than that, at less than 0.5%. So that's good. That means that the city financially is strong. Texas does have limitations on what they call the tax rate per the $100 of assessed value. And that is that no more than $1.50 per $100 of assessed value. So for comparison, in 2025, our current taxable debt rate is 3.5 cents. So the maximum is $1.50 per 100, and our current is 0.035, so 3.5 cents. So again, we are way low. We're nowhere near those caps, either from the bonding agencies or the requirements from the state of Texas. We have run some, again, I keep throwing out this number of 25 million just because we needed a number to plug in to share with you guys kind of what that would look like. At the $25 million, and we're going to be providing some additional detail to you with that, but you're probably talking about a maximum of 8 cents, 8.5 cents on that per $100 total combined with the current debt. So again, you're still way less than that $1.50 per 100. So you have plenty of room under the cap is all I'm trying to say, if you wanted to do it. So we also have fund balance. We've developed a new fund balance policy. We've got a healthy fund balance right now. There's some money available to that. That's another way to look at this. These different projects.
How much is in there?
So it's in total, it's about $20 million in fund balance, and I think that there actually might be a report in here, but I know that we're putting it on the website. Let me just segue to that for a second. If you go to the website and plug in the search bar in the top right corner, 2025 Bond Committee, we created a whole new page on the website. And we're trying to upload all of these types of reports, these documents, as well as updated financials, so that it's one place where you can go and you can see all of those things. So, and we'll continuously be updating that, as opposed to, I wanted to give you a lot of the core documents by paper so you could go through those, but that'll be a much easier way to share information with you.
So, Mr. Finch, in my previous life, I can remember First Southwest, who is now Plains Capital, would come out and provide an analysis as to, okay, this is your current tax rate, and then depending on what projects you are considering, this would be the impact on the tax rate. So do we have plans to have Plains Capital come out here and provide us that kind of analysis?
So we have Hilltop Securities. We've already asked them to do it, and we've already received it. So,
Okay.
so they have done that analysis again based on that number. We're just using it as a benchmark so that we can share real numbers with you of that 25 million and what the impact of that would be. But I want to go back to the question on the use of fund balance as well as other options. One of the things that I think is a best practice, and I'll share with you the way I've done this before in these large projects, is we would take out notes, or essentially, you could think of it almost like taking out a construction loan or something like that to get the building up. Then figure out exactly, once it's all done, what your true costs are, and take the bond out at the end instead of out front. That way you're not borrowing money that you don't need, that you're gonna have to pay back in the interest. And so in my experience, I've done this with water projects, I've done this with these types of service center facilities. That can save you millions of dollars, because if you can piecemeal that a little bit, that goes a long way, especially like what we were just talking about, some of the soft costs and some of the stuff up front without borrowing additional money. And then if sales tax is good, or we can use fund balance or whatever, maybe, and this is just hypothetical, but maybe we only need to bond 5 million of the service center instead of the whole thing. So just from a financial strategy, kind of doing that and thinking about that at the end, so.
Mr. Finch, I do have a question about that, cause I don't understand.
Sure,
I mean,
that's
I've
okay.
never, you know,
Mhm,
heard
sure.
about all that, so could that also backfire if construction costs went up? Like, let's say another 2020 happened, construction costs go through the roof, could that backfire?
So what we would need to do is we would need to, again, I'm just speaking if and hypothetical. Let's say you were gonna recommend to the council that we need to go ahead and do a bond. And let's again, just hypothetically say it's 25 million. We would put that bond before the voters, get the authorization to do the bond up to the 25 million. So it's there if we need it. But we would actually do the work, and so we'd actually be paying the work as we go. So for instance, the demolition and the steel beam construction and that type of stuff, let's say that as we start working with the contractor, we find out that that's gonna take 12 months, right? So instead of borrowing that whole $10 million, we may only need $1 million or $1.5 million. And so we would do it as fast as we can so that we don't run into the problem that you're talking about, because we don't want that to happen. But we wouldn't actually borrow the whole amount until we absolutely needed it. And we may never need the whole amount, but we would get the authorization up front. So.
And the savings would be the fact that as opposed to paying interest on $10 million of debt from day one, you're only paying interest on what you're using.
And the cost of issuance.
Which is what they did the last time.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, and updating the credit rating and all of that stuff, you can delay that a little bit and then only borrow what you need to.
Mr. Finch, are you familiar with design build
Yes.
agreements?
Yes.
Could any of that be factored into the way these projects are looking?
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, Mr. Harvey introduced me to a city manager who unfortunately we just lost not recently, Mr. Pat Stallings. And the city of Seagoville just built a new police station and a new fire station with design bid. Design build, I'm sorry, not design, design build. And basically what they did is they said, okay, here's the price that we're gonna allocate to, for instance, in that particular case, that was, I believe it was 8 million. Do you remember? I think it was 8 million for that police station. Contractor, here's the maximum, you can build exactly what we're telling you to build, $8 million, and that's it. And it really short circuits a lot of the pre-construction and change orders and everything. That was the challenge for the new fire station. That had 26 change orders. That was just ridiculous.
Use design build in Heights as well, Grossman design build, and you're right, that maximum price, but you can't succeed, it helps so much with things like change orders, those kind of things that classic underbid and then we'll get to our number by.
Right.
What is Design Build? Just a company that?
No, go ahead, go ahead. It's concept.
It's a concept.
Okay.
It's you give them the amount of money that you're gonna allocate for that project, and I'm not quite sure how the agreements work out. If they come under, do they get
Yeah.
a bonus, so to speak?
Right.
And if they go over, they have to absorb it somehow.
So essentially you say, this is the building we want and here's what we're willing to pay for it. Which contractors wanna work with us?
How do the bond companies work in regard to if you say, okay, we've got voters approval for $20 million, but we're gonna parcel this out, don't they require payment for their services for the full 20 million, or would they,
Well, so what they do is they require it at the time of the bond issuance. So it's the issuance cost. So the cost would be with whatever the final number is that we end up putting the bond out, but it wouldn't be on the first notes. A lot of times you can actually do interest only payments also. If you do something like, there's a thing called a bond anticipation note where you borrow a smaller amount of money up front to do the basic things that you need to get done, knowing that eventually you're gonna go and get a bigger bond that's already been approved by the voters. That's the key though, it has to have already been approved by the voters. So if the voters say no, then it can't happen, so.
Any other questions on this particular topic? Okay. All right, so that takes us to, let's see.
Can I see if I can,
Go ahead, go ahead.
when, Mr. Finch, when you were, answering, Mr. Harvey's question about Hilltop Securities, is that documentation on the website as well?
We're going to put it there, and we're also gonna email it to you. We just, as we're putting all this together, just haven't done that yet, but you are definitely gonna get that. We'll also end up emailing this to you too, just so, and putting this on the website. That's the big thing too, is we're trying to be really careful to make sure that everything we're giving you, we're also putting on the website, because then it's in the spirit of transparency. That way anybody can go look at it. And there'll be there's files there that will end up being like a whole repository of different information. I'll give you a perfect example. The police report that is in your binder, there was an update that was needed on some of the numbers, and we just got that. So we'll be putting the updated on the website, and so there's not huge differences, but there are some differences, and so we want to make sure we're keeping that up to date for you.
Okay, any other questions before we move on? All right. Item H, discussion of taxing impacts.
And I think that this one, obviously, we just talked about this a little bit, and I guess my suggestion to you, and I just kind of wanted to talk big picture for a minute, is that maybe this is a continuous discussion item as we go through each of these different projects and these different scenarios, and we start to say, okay, if we do the service center, and then we do this, what does this look like? And that we kind of keep going back. In the presentation that we went through last week, that we started to go through, and I think you have a copy of it, I believe you have a copy, but if you don't, that's okay. We'll make sure that you get it. We did run some, there's some slides with some numbers in terms of even going out through the year 2040 and what those might look like. But as we go project by project, we'll be able to drill down more and give you more specific numbers than general estimations, and then we'll be able to talk about those taxing impacts, right? So I think the big thing is, and you tell me if there's something else that you want to see, but we talk about the bonding amounts of that $25 million and what the debt service impact is on that, plus the current taxable debt service, which is 3.5 cents, and then that goes down. And then what I'd like to do is, as we kind of go through in the future these different projects, I'll be able to show you actual real-time examples of, based on an average house, this is the actual dollar amount. I think that that's something that we really need to keep in mind for a $200,000, a $300,000, a $400,000, a $500,000 house, so we see what those actual dollar numbers really are. So if that's amenable to everybody.
Okay, well, just for me personally, I like that approach because we're talking about several different things, and so as we go through each one, we talk about the impact of that one in general terms, and then when we get through the whole process, then we do a summary, and as you said, if we decide to do this, this is the impact. If we decide to do that, that would be the impact. So that would help me. So is everybody else okay with that?
Is there anything else that you would like to see relative to that, or is that, I don't know if there's anything else, is that sufficient for, as we go through these?
Mrs. Elkin?
I'm just curious, I'm not sure about exemptions that folks that are residential can apply for. Do exemptions help or hurt the bond rating?
So,
And if you don't know, that's okay.
well, no, so theoretically, an exemption would lower the taxable value, right? So if more people have exemptions, right, then the cost is spread over more of basically the taxpayers that don't have the exemptions, right? That's kind of the way it works, so, but the overall, usually what we do is use the overall assessed taxable value of the city. Now, we have the total taxable, we have the total assessed value, and then we have the total taxable value, and that's the difference. The difference is the exemptions. And so we usually will talk about the taxable value because that actually tells you the real number to help calculate the actual penny per 100.
And is that what that cap that you were talking about is based on?
Yes, so the cap from the state of Texas is $1 for debt, not for operations. So that's the other thing is it breaks down, right? So of the city's 61 cents, currently 3.5 cents is debt. The rest is operations, it's all the other things. So what the state of Texas says is you can have $1.50 of debt per 100. So theoretically, you could have the dollar, never ever recommend this, but you could have $1.50 of debt plus the operations of the city. So you could have a tax rate of, well, I think the cap on that is $2.50 per 100. So that's nowhere near where we want to go, obviously. So.
Yes, and then we'd be the focus of news media.
Right, exactly, right.
We'll be leaving Duncanville and Rhodes.
But I think it's really important to keep that perspective, right? Yes, it's literally, we're talking about pennies, but those pennies translate into real dollars when you calculate on the taxable value of somebody's house. And so making sure that we really understand that, you know, is it $100 a year? Is it $500 a year? But really understanding what that means, so.
Did that answer your question, Mr.?
What's going right with tax exempt bonds right now?
We're estimating 4 to 5%. You know, hopefully it'll come down a little bit, but ballpark. So the city is a AA bond rating, and I'm hoping that we can get, the city doesn't currently have a Moody's rating, which is not a bad thing. The city has a Standard & Poor's and a Fitch rating, but I'm really hoping that we can get a Moody's rating of a AA. And with the long-term financial plan that we're doing, the capital improvement plan, the fund balance policy, those are all the things that Moody's likes to see when they're doing a bond rating. And Richard and I have been having those conversations for almost a year now and telling them that's how we actually got our AA Standard & Poor's rate reinstated. But as they see that stuff actually happening, literally I saw an email today back and forth with the bond rating agencies. It was like, you got the audit done on time. I mean, literally, it was kind of like, it was excitement, it was good. And the question was, is next year's gonna be on time? Well, yes, it's gonna be on time, but talk to me in March of 26, so.
I think we've solved those problems. But anyway, so just for clarification, right now, we would like to have a Moody's rating if we can get one. Have we reached out to them to do that, and are there any pieces in place still pending that we need to do before we can reach out to them?
We have been having conversation with them as well, and Hilltop helps make those connections for us and everything. They're really good about that. So we have had some conversations with them. Most of our conversations are with Standard & Poor's because that's our current main rating. Really, before we reach out to them, we need to finish up a few things. We need to actually get the 15-year capital improvement plan officially adopted. I have no reason to think that we won't, but we're working on that. And then I think the other thing that'll be very helpful is this budget that we're working on right now. We're doing a multi-year look at it. And so they'll see a multi-year financial strategy with that, tying in that 15-year capital improvement plan. That on top of that, with the policies that the council's already adopted, I'm very confident Moody's will look at us very favorably. So.
Any other questions?
Does Moody's charge to do a review?
Yeah, they do.
What's the time frame that they might be willing to do that?
Each one of them is different. Jason from Hilltop Securities can probably better answer that based on his experience. Previously, it took, I would say, when I did it, I actually had to go to the Moody's and have all kinds of different conversations with them. I want to say it was like 60 to 90 days, but as long as you go in prepared and you have everything, it'll move along pretty quickly, so. But I mean, there will be interest because the city has a good bond rating, even with the Standard & Poor's AA. Standard & Poor's this past year changed their criteria. Some of you may have heard me say that. And so a lot of cities, their bond rating got downgraded. And we were very, very fortunate. We were having literally interviews with Standard & Poor's, and they held our bond rating the same as a AA bond rating. The advantage to getting a good bond rating is not only the better rates, but it's the financial institutions that'll look at you. And sometimes it gets so competitive that they'll buy down their own rates. So for instance, we were successful in getting my prior municipality, we were successful in getting, it ended up being a $5 million bond at 0.75% interest. And so because we did all the homework up front, we got the good bond rating, and we attracted so many financial institutions, they were competing with each other. That's what you want to have happen.
That's a perfect world.
Yep, that is perfect world. And I'm not gonna, and they're under any illusion that we're gonna get that low, but that'd be a goal, so.
Yeah. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right, well, thank you, Mr. Fitch, for your very complete and thorough.
You're welcome. Thanks for taking the time and going along the journey with us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, I would like to entertain a meeting, motion, that's not, a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
All right, motion and seconded, and with that, we'll see y'all next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll plan to do police next meeting, if that's okay with everybody. We won't need the bus for that, so.